At exactly 3:33 m.m., the sound woke her again. A slow, measured pacing, soft steps dragging against the carpet just outside her bedroom door. Rachel sat upright in bed, her chest tightening, every nerve straining toward the sound. The hallway behind the door was dark, too dark like the house itself was holding its breath. She told herself what she always told herself, that it was the neighbors, the creaks of old pipes, the settling of the house. The same excuses she whispered night after night for the past 3 weeks, but the footsteps never came at random. They never came at 1:14 or 2:08 or 4:27. They came at 3:33 on the dot. Every single night. She checked the time on her phone and the numbers glowed back at her. 3:33 a.m. The pacing stopped. Her throat was dry. She thought of calling someone, anyone, but what would she even say? That something invisible was pacing outside her door at a time of night she couldn't explain? That a 33-year-old woman in her own home was terrified of the dark hallway leading to the bathroom? The door creaked just slightly. Rachel froze. She stared at the doorknob, waiting for it to turn, waiting for the nightmare she felt in her bones to finally push through. Nothing. Just silence again, deep and heavy, until the clock rolled over to 3:34 and the world exhaled as if nothing had happened at all. By morning, she convinced herself she'd imagined it. Lack of sleep. Stress from work. She told herself the same story when it happened the next night, and the one after that. But by the end of the week, she wasn't convincing anyone, not even herself. Her coworkers had noticed the shadows under her eyes, the slouch in her shoulders. Rough nights? One of them asked. She forced a laugh, said she had a noisy neighbor. But deep inside, the truth was clawing its way up her throat. Something was in her house. Something that belonged to the time between 3:33 and 3:34. The following Friday, she bought cameras. A pair of wireless security cameras, one aimed down the hallway toward her bedroom door, the other stationed in her room to face the door itself. She set them up before bed, her hands trembling, her stomach churning with dread. If this was real, she'd know. If it wasn't, she'd finally get proof her mind was just breaking under stress. That night, she woke again at 3:33. The pacing started, soft and slow, as though someone were dragging their feet. She forced herself not to panic. She didn't move, didn't breathe too loudly, didn't scream. The cameras were rolling. All she had to do was survive. Her phone buzzed with the notification motion detected. She unlocked the app with trembling fingers. Static. The feed from the hallway camera was nothing but white snow. The blizzard of pixels and hissing sound. She switched to the bedroom camera. Static again. Her phone buzzed once more. The live feed came back for half a second, just long enough to see the door to her bedroom cracking open, inch by inch, as if pushed by invisible hands. And then the feed cut out. Rachel threw her phone aside, her pulse hammering in her ears, her eyes locked on the door. She wanted to scream, to run, to turn on every light in the house, but her body refused to move. She could only watch as the knob twitched, the wood moaning with the sound of pressure against it. At 3:34, everything stopped. When morning came, she bolted for the cameras. The hallway camera log showed nothing, just black, but the bedroom feed. Her hands shook as she pressed play. At first, it was the same static she'd seen live. Then the picture flickered back, just for a moment. Her heart seized in her chest. It wasn't static, it was her. Standing in the hallway. The same hair, the same pajamas, the same terrified expression she wore in bed. Her double stared straight at the camera. And then the footage ended. Rachel didn't go to work the next day. She couldn't. She sat at the kitchen table, her laptop open, the camera feed replaying again and again. Each time, her stomach turned colder. It wasn't just that the figure in the hallway looked like her. It was her. The grainy recording captured details no imposter could fake: the chipped nail polish on her left thumb, the fray at the hem of her pajama sleeve, even the faint scar on her neck from when she tripped on her bike at 12. She rewound the clip, paused it frame by frame, and the few seconds before the image cut out, the other Rachel lifted her hand toward the camera, palm open, as if pressing against the lens. Her own eyes, looked wide and dark, almost too dark, as if there was nothing inside. Rachel slammed the laptop shut. She sat trembling, the silence of her kitchen pressing in like suffocating fog. By noon, she had convinced herself there had to be some explanation, a glitch, a reflection, maybe even a sick joke by whoever had installed the cameras in the first place. But the memory of those dark eyes whispered otherwise. That night, she couldn't bring herself to sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the cameras aimed at her door like useless guardians. At 3:30, her phone buzzed with a notification of movement. Her chest tightened, and she clutched it to her chest without daring to look. 3:31, 3:32. By 3:33, the sound began again, pacing, slow, dragging steps just outside the door. Her breath came shallow, too fast. She thought about bolting out the window, but her body betrayed her. She lay frozen as the steps drew closer, pausing right on the other side of the thin wooden barrier. Her phone vibrated again, motion detected, and she forced herself to look. The screen flickered with static, but this time there was more. A shape, faint, just beyond the snow of pixels. It was her, again. The camera showed Rachel standing in the hallway, perfectly still, her head tilted slightly to the side. And then, in a movement that didn't match the pacing she heard, the figure pressed her face against the bedroom door. The camera's mic picked up a faint creak, and Rachel, frozen in her bed, heard the same sound echo through the wood. She screamed. Not loud, not brave, just a raw, broken sound. The pacing stopped instantly. The feed cut to static once more. At 3:34, silence returned. Her throat ached, her chest heaved. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. By morning, Rachel was shaking so badly she dropped her coffee mug, shattering it across the floor. She didn't even clean it up. She just sat at the table, clutching her phone, scrolling through forums and message boards. Sleep paralysis, some said. Hypnagogic hallucinations, paranormal interference. None of it made sense. That evening, she dragged the cameras into the closet. She couldn't stand to look at them anymore. She tried to convince herself it was all in her head, that nothing could hurt her if she just ignored it. But when 3:33 rolled around, she couldn't help herself. She lay awake, waiting, and the pacing came. Not outside the door this time, but inside her room. Rachel sat bolt upright, heart thundering. The sound was impossible to mistake bare feet dragging against carpet, slow and deliberate, circling the bed. She clutched at her phone, fumbling to turn on the flashlight, but the screen refused to unlock. Her fingers trembled too violently. She turned her head, the darkness heavy and absolute, and saw nothing, yet the sound moved closer. Steps right beside her bed now, the weight of them pressing into the carpet. She tried to scream, but her voice was gone, strangled by terror. And then the mattress dipped. Something sat down beside her. Rachel couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She lay paralyzed, the sheets pressed against her face as the weight on the mattress shifted closer. She felt warmth against her arm, breath, her own breath, but colder, as if exhaled from lungs that hadn't drawn air in years. Then, as the clock ticked to 3:34, it was gone. The mattress lightened. The room fell still. Rachel lay there until sunrise, drenched in sweat, every nerve screaming for escape. By daylight, she swore she would leave. Pack a bag, go to her sister's, stay in a hotel, anything to get out of that house. But the hours drifted by in a fog of exhaustion and dread, and she couldn't bring herself to move. She couldn't even bring herself to touch the doorknob. That night, she tried something different. She stayed awake, lights blazing, TV on. Every distraction she could find piled into the room with her. But as the clock edged closer to 3:33, the fear in her chest became unbearable. The lights flickered. The TV cut to static. And from the hallway, a familiar voice called softly. Her voice, Rachel. Open the door. Rachel gripped the edge of the blankets, knuckles white, staring at the door as her own voice whispered through it. Rachel, let me in. Her throat closed up. She wanted to scream, to shout back at the impossible mimic on the other side, but all she could do was shake her head, as if the thing could see her refusal through solid wood. The doorknob rattled. Rachel's breath hitched. She watched as it jerked, twisted, then stilled, like whatever was out there was testing its strength. She lunged forward, grabbed her nightstand lamp, and raised it high. I'll kill you, she choked out, her voice trembling, raw. Silence. For one fleeting moment, she thought maybe it was over. Maybe standing up to it was enough. But then came the sound-low, guttural laughter. Her laughter? Why would you hurt yourself? The voice said, sweet and taunting, her own tones warped and doubled. The knob twisted again, harder this time, and Rachel screamed as she hurled the lamp at the door. The crash echoed through the room, and the bulb burst in a shower of sparks. The room plunged into darkness. At 3:34, everything stopped. Rachel collapsed against the headboard, sobbing into her hands, rocking back and forth until dawn painted the room gray. That morning, she packed, no hesitation this time. She shoved clothes into a duffel, grabbed her wallet, her keys, and fled the house without looking back. She drove aimlessly for hours, every nerve on edge, until exhaustion forced her to stop at a motel off the interstate. The woman at the desk gave her a key with a pitying look, probably assuming she was another runaway or addict. Rachel didn't care. She stumbled into the small room, dropped her bag, and fell into bed. Sleep came fast, heavy, but not peaceful. She dreamed of doors, endless doors, stretching down black hallways, each creaking open as she passed. Behind every one, she saw herself standing there, smiling, eyes like pits of tar. She woke with a start. Her heart hammered against her ribs, her throat dry, her skin damp with sweat. The clock on the bedside table glowed red. 3:32 a.m. No, Rachel whispered. Her stomach lurched. She wasn't home. She wasn't anywhere near that cursed hallway, that cursed door. It couldn't follow her here. But then came the sound, pacing, soft, dragging footsteps outside the motel room door. Her blood turned to ice. She sat frozen, eyes locked on the cheap wooden barrier that separated her from the dark walkway beyond. 3:33 a.m. The pacing stopped. Rachel's phone buzzed on the nightstand. She snatched it up with trembling hands, heart pounding so hard it hurt. A notification lit the screen, motion detected. She hadn't even realized she'd left the cameras on. The feed opened automatically. For a moment, there was nothing but static. Then the picture cleared. Rachel dropped the phone. Her knees buckled against the bed frame. The feed wasn't showing her motel room. It was showing her bedroom at home. The camera, left behind, still pointed at the door. And in the doorway, her double stood. It didn't move. It didn't blink. It just stared into the camera with that same unnatural stillness. The same tilted head. The same hollow eyes. Her phone buzzed again, a new notification. Motion detected in room. Rachel's breath caught. She picked the phone back up with shaking hands. The camera feed switched and her stomach dropped. The motel room. Her motel room. The view showed her from above, as if filmed from the ceiling corner. She saw herself sitting on the bed, pale and terrified, staring at the phone. And behind her, in the grainy footage, the door was opening. Rachel spun around. The door was shut. Perfectly shut. She turned back to the phone. The figure on the screen stepped inside the room. It was her again. Same pajamas, same face, same scar. But this one smiled wide, too wide, and lifted a finger to her lips in a mockery of silence. The feed cut out. Rachel screamed. She grabbed her bag, bolted out of the room barefoot, and tore down the motel hallway until she burst into the night air. Her lungs burned, her chest heaved, but she didn't stop running until she was back in her car, engine roaring to life. She drove for hours again, deeper into nowhere, until exhaustion dragged her eyelids down. The sun was rising when she finally pulled into a rest stop, slumped against the steering wheel, and passed out. When she woke, the world was quiet, too quiet. She blinked at her phone. It was dead. No notifications. No feeds. For the first time in weeks, there was no sound of pacing, no laughter, no creak of the doorknob. She thought maybe it was over until she looked up at the rearview mirror and saw herself sitting in the back seat. Rachel's scream tore through the empty rest stop parking lot. She spun in the driver's seat, clawing at the air, ready to fight, ready to die, but the back seat was empty. Her chest heaved, eyes wild, breath ragged. Nothing but shadows and worn upholstery. She turned back to the wheel, gripping it so tightly her fingers ached. Her mind was breaking. She knew it. The figure wasn't real, couldn't be real. Sleep deprivation, paranoia, stress, it all added up. But when she lifted her phone from the cue folder and powered it back on, her stomach dropped. 3:32 a.m. No. Her voice shook, a child's plea to an uncaring universe. She couldn't do this again. Not here. Not trapped in a car. The pacing started, outside. Rachel whipped her head toward the windshield, her pulse thundering. There was no one in sight, just the stillness of dawn, mist clinging to the asphalt. But the sound of footsteps circled the car, slow, dragging, deliberate. 3:33 a.m. Her phone buzzed with a motion notification. Her hand shook so violently she nearly dropped it. She opened the feed, static. Then the picture cleared, showing the view from her bedroom camera again. Only the room wasn't empty. Her double stood inside, closer this time, half of her face pressed against the lens. The eye on screen stared into hers, pupil blown wide, a black void swallowing the camera's reflection. The image flickered. Now the feed showed the motel room. Her double sat on the edge of the bed, head cocked, lips stretched in that too wide smile. Another flicker. Now the feed showed her car, the inside of her car. Rachel gasped. The grainy view showed her hunched in the driver's seat, staring down at her phone, trembling, and behind her, filling the back seat, was her. The same figure, the same hollow smile. But this time, the figure raised its hand and waved. Rachel dropped the phone and screamed, scrambling out of the car, slamming the door behind her. She ran, barefoot across the asphalt, her breath burning in her lungs, her heart screaming in her chest. The pacing followed. Always the same pace, never hurrying, never faltering. Just circling her, closing in. She stumbled into the rest stop bathroom, slammed the door, locked it, pressed her back against the cool tile. She tried to breathe, tried to think, but every sound was magnified. The drip of a faucet, the buzz of a flickering fluorescent bulb, and beneath it all, the steady drag of footsteps. She gripped the sink, forcing herself to look up at the mirror. Her reflection stared back, eyes sunken, face pale, hair damp with sweat. And then slowly it smiled. Rachel froze. Her lips had not moved. She was certain of it. But the reflection grinned wider, stretching until the skin at the corners of its mouth split, dark lines running across its cheeks. The lights flickered. Her reflection leaned closer, pressing its palms flat against the other side of the glass, staring at her with those abyss-black eyes. Rachel stumbled back, shaking her head, whispering, "No, no, no." The mirror cracked. A jagged fissure split the glass between them, spiderwebbing outward. Her reflection's hand pressed harder, and the surface bowed outward as though the glass were soft, pliable. Rachel screamed, bolting for the door. But before her hand reached the lock, it turned on its own. The knob rattled once, twice, then stopped. 3:34 Amada. Silence. Rachel slumped against the wall, sobbing. The mirror was whole again. Her reflection was her own again. The footsteps were gone. The sun rose outside, painting the rest stop in soft, harmless light. For the first time in weeks, Rachel felt hope. Fragile, trembling, but real. Maybe this was the end. Maybe she had survived. She left the bathroom hours later, numb, drained, but alive. She got back into her car, started the engine, and drove until the highway swallowed her. That night, she rented a room in another small town, exhausted beyond fear. She locked the door, pulled the curtains tight, and crawled into bed. Her eyes burned with sleep, her body sinking into the mattress. When she finally drifted off, her dreams were empty, no doors, no pacing, until she woke. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it, her hand trembling. Notification, motion detected. She unlocked the feed, praying for static. The picture cleared. It was her new motel room. The bed, the nightstand. And in the doorway, her double, head tilted, eyes black. Smile wide, Rachel's breath caught. She lowered the phone, throat tight, stomach turning cold. And from the doorway, in her own voice, soft and certain, came the words she had dreaded most. Rachel, it's time to let me in. The clock glowed red beside her bed. 3:33 am.